Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Upper Hand Podcast, where our goal is to leverage limitations and turn adversity into advantage. Here's your host, Chris Ruden.
We are back with the first concept of the Upper Hand Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Ruden. Today, we're focusing on what you can control and not what you can't control. A lot of people see me, they'll see my disability, and they're like, man, I could never do what you did. I wish things were different for you, man. I wish things were different for me. With this COVID thing, I just wish things were different. If things were different, they would be better. But you can't control that. You can't change that. You can't do anything about that. See, that's the problem. What I feel like a lot of us face is we put so much emphasis, so much effort, so much energy into things that we can't control. And if you can't control it, you can't change it. That means the problem you're trying to change was never a problem you could control or fix in the first place. That means that problem you can't do anything about is not your problem to fix. Growing up with a disability, all I did was ask, why? Why me? What was the reason that this happened? Why did this happen to me, And I always saw other people. I'm like, man, I want their life. I want what they have. I wish I could have what they have. But why me? And it wasn't until I started asking the better question, not the why, which I couldn't control, but the what. What could I do in the moment? What could I actually do to change not only where I am, but where I could be? You see, that why tends to get people hung up. We get hung up on the why is this happening? Why was I born this way? Why was I born into this life? Why did these circumstances happen? And it's super important to learn from the why. Don't get me wrong. I never want to invalidate where people come from. It's important to look at history. We can learn from history, but you can't grow from history unless you focus on what you can control now. So the why is limiting to an extent, but the what will take you far. Imagine if you started focusing your entire life, your entire behavior, your entire thought process on things that you could actually control. Instead of saying, what if this happens? What if that happens? Being afraid of the unknown, being afraid of things you can't control. Imagine if you put all of your energy into doing what you can now with what you have now where you are right now. How much different would your life be if you focused on things that you could actually change instead of complained about things that you can't? It's funny that I say that, though, because I spent 17 years doing the exact opposite. I spent a majority of my life complaining about things that I could never control. It doesn't serve me to complain about my disability or the way I grew up or the struggles that I had. Now, in not invalidating what I went through, it was a struggle. We're going to have shit times. You're probably going to have shit times. You might be going through shit times right now. But in going through shit times, you don't need to make it shittier by telling yourself the things that you can't do. What you can't do doesn't serve you. What you can do will only serve you if you decide to do it. We end up becoming a victim of our perspective, or a victor of our perspective. And the difference is in where you decide to put your effort, where you decide to put your thought processes and behaviors. Man, for so long, I see so many people really only talking about the things they wish were different, and not the things that they could do now to make them different. The whole reason I decided to put this concept into the book, The Upper Hand, was because I was a victim of my perspective. Now, I truly believe that we're all kind of victims of our own lives. None of us asked to be born. None of us asked to go through these things. But it's not our choice, which means it's not our fault. But it is our responsibility. It's our responsibility to focus on the things that we can do instead of just fill our heads with all the things that we can't do. Because what we can't do, we can't do. So why are we taking the moment that we have the opportunity that we have and talking about something that doesn't do anything for us. Imagine investing into a stock that you knew was going to fail. You would never do that. You would never do that. You would never tell someone else to do that. Yet, we're sitting here knowing that we can't control the situation we don't like, and we keep replaying it over and over and over. So what you focus on magnifies. So when you focus on the things that really don't serve you, all you're doing is magnifying the things that will never be done. For me, I had to change that perspective. I had to change the perspective and change that self-communication and tell myself, hey, as shitty as this might be, I can't do anything about that part. But what I can do is this. So instead of focusing on the rose bush, being a thorn bush with roses, I told myself maybe it could be a rose bush with thorns. Both are similar perspectives, yet a completely different outcome, not only in what the image is, but what we do about the image. We tend to tell ourselves a specific image, a specific play. We create a specific life over something, a lie. We tell ourselves we have to focus on these things because they're so consuming. And because they're so consuming, because they're so harmful to us, that's what we have to focus on. Just because you have that knee-jerk reaction to focus on that shitty situation doesn't mean it's right. It's important to validate your feelings, but it's very important to take a step back and validate the truths. And the truth of the matter is, if you can't do anything about it, it does not serve you to do anything with that. It better serves you to do something with what you can, where you are right now. Otherwise, the people you could potentially help, the life you could potentially have, the things you could potentially do will never come to fruition. What you focus on magnifies. Make sure you're focusing on what serves you and not what happened to you. There's a big difference. Focus on what you can control, not what you can't control, and that's what the upper hand is all about.